How hard is it to become rich? It's pretty easy. I think it's not that hard. Now you might be thinking that's a bold statement. Yeah, it is a bold statement, but let me explain. Investing and the stock market has gone through a revolution in the past few years. And it's changing every day. The old way of investing, the old paradigm, your granddaddy's, stock market, it's gone. And there's a new paradigm in investing. And there's a new way to make money. Some of the things that we have available now, they weren't even around, just 5-10 years ago. It's changed that quickly. Just 5 years ago, some of these opportunities didn't even exist. So some of the things I'm talking about are, some of the dividend options paying funds. Well, they're really distributions, that pay you monthly. And now we have some that are even paying weekly. And there's speculation that there might be some that are going to pay daily in the future. That wasn't even a thing. Go back a decade. And even just a couple years ago, they were around, but like the yield wasn't that high. It was still feasible to, become financially independent, retire. But it's just, the game has changed. And there's new ETFs on the market, and there's new options funds that pay you money, on a regular basis, being released every single month. And there's variety also. There's some that trade options differently. There's some that are synthetic, which means they don't own the stock, and there's some where they actually own the stock. The strike prices are different. Anyway, I don't want to bore you with the details, but there's just different ways to invest in these options trading funds that generate money and pay you cash every month. On top of that, look what's happening with all of the ETFs that have been coming out. And this is literally like the last 6 months. Bitcoin, right? It gives so much more people access to Bitcoin. It's not like they didn't have access before, but it's more accessible, right? And now big institutions are buying in to Bitcoin. It's a heck of a lot easier for, people, retail investors that aren't that tech savvy. And then some of my favorites, which is the trusts and the crypto trusts. And they go back a decade, those didn't exist. And that's like the biggest opportunity you have. And these investments are life-changing investments. And people could absolutely, rich, what does that mean? It means something different to everybody. Maybe you could say, becoming wealthy or growing your wealth, however you want to term it. But it's all relative. But anyway, it's really not that difficult. If someone can figure out how to live beneath their means, in other words, make more money than you spend. It doesn't matter what your career is, your education level. There's some people that think, well, I can't save money, there's just no way. It's like, well, there's always a way. There's always a way. There might be some extreme cases where, you might have to get help from family or friends or something, or God forbid the government, but there's always a way. There's always a way out for people. And like I said in my last video, literally $20 you can get started. You could buy a share of something, and it's not going to appreciate like the market, the S&P 500 or Apple. I mean, when I say appreciate, I mean it's going to compound either monthly, or it could be something that you know, you can get 50 times your return on investment. Like crazy numbers like that. So it doesn't matter what you make. You know, you just have to find a way to do it. Earn money, save it, invest it into some of these assets. You know, in this new market that we have. And like, you know, the people that grew up with the old style of investing, where you buy an index, maybe you buy a few individual company stocks, and you sit and wait, right? You still have your career. You still have to work the majority of your life. Some people are fortunate to escape that, but most people don't. Well, now you don't really have to do that if you take some initiative and you set your mind to it and you say, this is what I want. I'm going to invest, and I'm going to make some money. I'm going to make some real money, and it's not going to take me 40 years. I can get there a lot quicker. And you know what? You're right, you can. So I'm telling people what I'm investing in, and I'm being completely transparent. Like if I crash and burn, I'm gonna tell people, you know, I'm gonna tell them, hey, you know, this investment didn't work out. This one did, this one didn't. Whatever, it doesn't bother me. But you know, I'm not gonna fail. And as far as, you know, the other ones that I'm into, like if you wanna invest in, you know, options funds like MSTY, Misty, or Coney, those are my two biggest holdings, you know, and they're also based off of crypto and Bitcoin, but they generate cash every month. I have an exit plan for those, you know, because I know eventually the price of Bitcoin is going to drop, and you know, I'm prepared for that. You know, a lot of people say, well, you know, they'll say these investments are risky. Not if you know what you're doing. Not if you know what you're doing. You know, I've heard people say, well, I know somebody who knows somebody, and they bought Bitcoin and they lost money. And then I'll say, oh, okay, well, you know, do they understand the crypto or the Bitcoin cycle? The Bitcoin what? Well, there you go. You know, they don't understand the cycle, and it's not all that complicated. If people teach themselves how to invest, you know, it's not that difficult to become wealthy.